What if I told you that the next global collapse won't come from war, technology, or politics, but from the one thing we all depend on every day: money? Because beneath the surface of every booming market, every paycheck, every digital transaction, there's a ticking time bomb. A global system built not on gold, not on productivity, but on debt. And for decades, that system has been expanding, inflating, and quietly rotting from the inside. Governments call it stimulus. Economists call it policy. But history has another name for it: collapse. So how did the world's financial system become a bubble too big to burst? And what happens when it finally does? Today, we're going deep into the timeline. From the origins of global money, to the rise of central banking, to the fragile system now holding the modern world together by a thread. This is World Money Collapse. Incoming Section 1. Origins. The Seed of Dependence. 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Visual. Ancient coins, gold bars, ledgers, and trading ships crossing oceans. Narrator. Money started as a simple tool, a way to trade value. Gold and silver became universal because they were scarce and trusted. But as trade expanded, so did the need for convenience. Banks emerged, promising to hold gold safely while issuing paper receipts that represented it. At first, every paper note could be exchanged for real metal. But soon, governments realized something. If people believed the paper was as good as gold, why stop printing it? The first cracks appeared. The promise of value turned into the illusion of value. And from that illusion, control was born. Section 2. The Rise. Building the global money machine. 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Visual. 19th century bankers. Industrialization. The creation of the Federal Reserve. Narrator. By the early 1900s, economies had outgrown their gold supply. Banks and governments wanted flexibility, the power to create money without limits. In 1913, the United States established the Federal Reserve, a central bank designed to stabilize markets. But in reality, it gave a small group the power to create money out of thin air. Every new dollar was born as debt, and because each dollar carried interest, the world had to borrow more just to pay back what already existed. World War I, the Great Depression, World War II. Each crisis led to one solution: print more money. And by 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, world leaders linked global currencies to the US dollar, and the dollar to gold. It was supposed to bring stability. Instead, it created dependence. Every nation now tied to the fate of one. Section 3. The Breaking Point. The gold standard falls 5 o'clock to 6:30 visual. Nixon on television. Economic protests. Oil crises headlines. Narrator. By the late 1960s, America was spending far more than it could afford: wars, welfare, expansion. Other nations saw the imbalance and demanded gold in exchange for their dollars. But the votes were running dry. So in 1971, President Richard Nixon made a historic decision. He ended the dollar's convertibility to gold. Overnight, the global economy shifted from tangible wealth to pure trust. Money was no longer backed by anything real, only by the promise of governments that kept printing it. And with that single act, the age of fiat money began. Section 4. The Fallout. Debt without end. 6:30 to 8 o'clock visual. 1980s. Stock booms. 2008 crash footage. People lining up outside banks. Narrator. Once the printing press was unchained, there was no turning back. Central banks learned they could manipulate markets with interest rates and quantitative easing. Governments learned they could fund anything: wars, bailouts, pandemics, by creating new money. But every dollar printed reduces the value of the dollars already in your pocket. Inflation isn't a mistake. It's a feature of the system. In 2008, the illusion cracked. The world's largest banks collapsed under mountains of bad debt. Trillions were lost, and then magically recreated through bailouts. Instead of resetting, the system doubled down. Zero interest rates. Massive stimulus. Infinite growth. And by 2020, global debt exceeded $300 trillion. That's more than triple the value of everything the world produces in a year. Section 5. Modern Parallels. History on repeat. 8 o'clock to 9:30 visual. Inflation charts, grocery prices rising, digital payment systems expanding, narrator. In 2020 alone, the US printed over 40% of all dollars in existence in 1 year. Inflation surged, wages lagged, and savings evaporated. People turned to crypto, hoping for freedom. But governments are already creating their own digital currencies. CBDCs, programmable money with total visibility and control. The next collapse might not look like the Great Depression. It could happen silently through inflation, digital devaluation, or the flick of a switch in a central bank's database. Conclusion, takeaways, warning, and call to action 9:30 to 10:30 visual. City skylines dissolving into streams of binary code. Narrator. So what can we learn from this? Takeaway 1. Every empire ends when its money fails, from raw mesta-based coins to today's inflated currencies. Takeaway 2. The system survives by creating debt, not solving it. Growth is mandatory. Collapse is inevitable. Takeaway 3. When money becomes digital, control becomes total. The real collapse might not be financial. It might be personal freedom. Narrator. Lower tone. The signs are already here. The question isn't if the world money system collapses. It's when. So ask yourself, will you be caught inside it, or prepared to see beyond it? Visual. Dollar fades to black. Text appears. Understand the system before it resets you. Narrator. If this opened your eyes, hit like. Share it with someone who still thinks money is infinite. And subscribe for more deep dives into the systems shaping our world. Because knowledge isn't panic, it's preparation.